They walk into the studio, Method Man comes in with blood dripping off his hands.
No!
One of their crew members has a big towel on his face that's all bloody. They had just had a fight with themselves in the lobby.
Today, I'm in Harlem catching up with Jay Smooth. Jay's been a big influence on me and my work for a long time. As well as hosting New York's longest-running hip-hop radio show, he's been online for years producing funny, engaging, and insightful content about pop culture, politics, social justice, and the awkwardness of talking about race. And he knows firsthand, it can get very, very awkward.
But Chris, I can't not tease Jay about the kind of like brother way he was taught to talk, and you know, like hey, with the rap music in the background and like down with the people.
I'm a rap guy.
Yeah, I know, but it's another interesting, funny thing about race. Like there would be some people that feel that you co-opted something like that, and other people might feel like, well, that's his background, and that's really cool too.
It's also interesting because I'm actually black, but you assumed otherwise.
Check 1, 2, what's up, y'all? I am Jay Smooth, creator of New York's longest running hip-hop radio show, The Underground Railroad. I'm also a cultural commentator at IllDoctrine.com. I'm also Harlem born and raised, and we are right here on 125th and Lenox, now known as Malcolm X Boulevard. And we're right at ground zero of the gentrification process in Harlem, 125th Street, Magic Johnson Starbucks, where it all began. This used to be the most bougie thing in the area, now it's the least bougie thing on the block. And this is the stretch I grew up on. I grew up on 145th and Lenox in Esplanade Gardens. So this is a strip I used to walk up and down all the time. Schaumburg Library is on 135th Street. Walking around here, it brings me back to earlier stages of life. Like, okay, I came to where I am now from a whole different place. Collectively, like, we've gone through so many stages of history and we're still here. These times right now seem real crazy with you know who, but we're going to persevere through that too. Hip hop is this hugely replenishing, deep, rich, beautiful thing that has been the bedrock of my identity in so many positive ways. Just in terms of me being a very introverted, socially isolated kid, and then being a kid who grew up in Harlem but became a scholarship kid at one of the elite high schools, Fieldston, up in Riverdale. Just having something that I could claim as my own, this thing I belonged to. It's something I continued up until working in the corporate world in my 20s. I would be at the ad agency building websites, and I would have my headphones on listening to the Chronic 2001 album, something that I knew would be utterly repellent to all of my colleagues in the workplace. It's okay if I don't fit in here. My sense of self doesn't hinge on that because I have this grounding of belonging to this community. Yeah, so this is Jimbos Burgers, classic Harlem burger spot. Back in the 80s, the spot used to be Willie Burgers. That was a legendary spot on 145th. You used to just drive up and grab your Willie Burgers. After that went away, Jimbos basically became the spot. Now there's a bunch around town. One of the last holdouts of Harlem I grew up in.
So this is the first time I've been back since Trump, but in New York, I don't feel it or see it.
The day after the election, it was being out and about in New York it felt like the day after 9/11. Like
that's what
total strangers. Pardon me, total strangers were just making eye contact. Like, do you believe this shit? Like that's the one time every New Yorker, you were just all commiserating with each other. Like, word. This is what it's about. I don't think it necessarily changes the energy in New York City because we already leaning heavily in a certain direction, and we've been hated Trump for 20 years now. It's just like with Giuliani. America thought he was New York's hero. New York didn't think he was New York's hero. So America's getting to know what we've been knew about Giuliani and Trump. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of people in New York City that think a certain way, but they just don't show it when they're out and about it. You know, it was in my neighborhood that the young black man was moving into his building, and they called the cops on him because they thought he was burglarizing his apartment he was moving into. So in the little blog for my neighborhood, they posted about it, and every comment was another person saying,
it's reasonable.
Yeah, you should know better than to make noise at 11:30 at night. They called the cops and said it was a burglary because they knew the cops wouldn't come otherwise. Like, they're endorsing lying to the police about a felony going on to get them to come and deal with this nuisance complaint. And this is not the type of website that random trolls be on. You wouldn't be here unless you live in that neighborhood. So I'm like, wow, I'm walking by people all the time who think this way.
How long have you hosted Underground Railroad?
I've been doing my radio show since 1991. I don't want to tabulate how many years that is, 27 years. So I was lucky enough to help build up New York's underground hip hop scene in the 90s, you know, that whole raucous era. Like, I had WuTang Clan when they were first coming out. Fugees, Biggie called up and did a phone interview out of nowhere. He was mad cool. It was like, hey, you know, they told me to call up, sir, let's chop it up.
Wow.
I'm here at the phone booth, was good. And you would have that experience of meeting these people and talking to them when they're on their way up. Experiences that I can look back now, like, wow, we were really witnessing history. And there, you know, there was an electricity to that whole era at the time, for sure. But there's so many memories of it now. I'm like, wow, I can't believe all the Wu members were in the same room with me rapping for me. When Tupac first came out, his people called me up like, hey, you want to interview this new artist, Tupac Shakur? I was like, I don't know, maybe. I never followed up on it. Have you seen the Biggie movie? And there's a part where Puff is on the phone with him like, listen, we can only get interviews at college radio. That was about me.
Nice.
Talking about, I was his low point, but it was a high point for us.
You had to overcome you.
Yeah, right.
By the way, I'm a huge fan of your Facebook page. No, I just think like your Facebook page is like a nicely curated place where people have like very respectful discussions. It's like a master's class, and my Facebook page is like a first-year poli-sci where I'm like, look what white people did this week, and everyone's like, yeah.
I feel you. Yeah, I'm most proud of the community I curate.
You're like,
Facebook.
yes, my Facebook page is superior to you.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable saying that because it's not me.
It's really good.
It's that community.
It's
of people.
really cool.
I'm blessed because I have this background in the hip hop world where I'm connected with a lot of really great thinkers from hip hop culture. I know a lot of people in activist social justice realm that can bounce off of those hip hop people. Like, there's people from so many different realms of my life that I've gotten to connect with that can all meet in this hub and share their perspectives in this really dope way. Yeah, if I could just earn a living curating these dope ass Facebook conversations, I would.
When you look back, what are some of your like favorite hip hop memories?
When I had WuTang Clan on the show, this is when they were first coming out, Protect Your Neck 12-inch, the Loud Records version, after they had just got signed to Loud RCA. It was just coming out. So we're waiting for them to come. They're like the hot new underground act. They walk into the studio, Method Man comes in with blood dripping off his hands.
No!
One of their crew members has a big towel on his face that's all bloody. They had just had a fight with themselves in the lobby.
With each other?
Yeah, it was like they were slapboxing with each other and it turned into a real fight kind of thing. We don't really know much about the WuTang Clan at this point. They're coming in with a real hostile vibe in the studio. Me and my people are like, well, have you ever seen the Richard Pryor scene where he's talking about he's going to be in a boxing match? So the dude comes in the ring hitting himself and Richard's like, well, he's fucking himself up. I know he don't give a fuck about me. So then we're trying to pick out a beat to freestyle over. And Method Man, he's still out of sorts from getting in this fight. So every beat we showed him, like, you can freestyle over this, he's like, no, I don't like that shit. I fucking hate that shit. So we finally find a beat. It was Kool G Rap On The Run remix. Everyone's there except U-God, because U-God is still in jail at this point. They all freestyle. And then I beatboxed for Old Dirty Bastard after the instrumental ran out and he got mad and cut me off.
Why?
Because my beatboxing was too syncopated. I was being too creative and he was like,
don't improvise?
Yeah. So that was my failed effort at joining the band.
What's a piece of hip-hop memorabilia that you lost and wish you hadn't? Because I know, like, I see sometimes you're like post that you're like going through boxes of old stuff. You've got original issues of this, that. And...
In terms of hip-hop memorabilia, I had an original Naughty by Nature OPP sticker, which was like gold in 1991. I was coming home from the New Music Seminar, and I got mugged on my block. They got like $3 and my OPP sticker.
No!
I should have fought them. I should have fought them to the death. I regret it every day.
And they really wanted it.
They just were taking whatever they did. I don't know if they even knew what they were getting their hands on. I hope they put it on eBay so somebody benefited. I mean, there's so many amazing memories from back in the 90s because there was a real hip-hop community in New York in a way that it may exist for some people, but for my generation, it's kind of split apart and gone its different ways. Back then, we had a whole family of underground radio shows that we would each go hang out at each other's show every week. Bobbito and Stretch Armstrong, the whole lineup on 105.9, Mr. Magic and Mr. C on their station, WNYU, Mayhem and Martin Moore. We would each support each other and all hang out at each other's shows, and artists would come to the show and then we'd all go to Jimbos Burgers afterwards and eat. That was how I got to meet Biggie the first time. Was I was at 105.9 and the rapper, reggae artist Shinehead used to hang out with us regularly there. And we pulled up to this place around the clock on 8th Street, and we were walking up with Shinehead and someone rolled down the window of their car and gestured for Shinehead to come over. And when we got there, it was Biggie. And he was like, yo, Shinehead, it's so good to meet you, man. I'm a big fan of your stuff. So we got to have this whole little interaction with Biggie that really shows you he's a fan of the culture like us.
Right.
And like he was geeked to meet Shinehead. It was this real cool moment. You used to have so many moments like that of sharing this hip hop community with people, getting to experience that community with all the practitioners you look up to, and we were all building and supporting this thing together. And just having the honor of giving people this outlet where they can come and perform and show what they've got, and then what I get from it is all these amazing artists are basically coming in this room and giving me a command performance. Like I'm watching a Tribe Called Quest sit here and freestyle in a room this size for me and my friends, and that's the best way to like you get to see so many nuances and subtleties of what a great MC can do. If you're in a room with Pharoah Monch, watching him perform, there's a level of virtuosity that you're witnessing that is just unlike anything you're gonna, like going to a stadium show and seeing people rap. It'll be a cool experience, but really seeing that mastery of the craft up close is something that not many hip-hop lovers are going to get to experience, and I got to experience it many times over. So it's been a tremendous blessing to experience it on such an intimate, beautiful level and be able to play my part and contribute to passing that on.
I guess, like, having been in that, is it difficult, like, to not look at hip-hop now and kind of shake your finger and be like, back in my day, it was beautiful.
I mean, you can have an impulse to do that, but I think the more realistic way to look at it is we had our run. We did everything we were supposed to do with our hip-hop. Now successive generations are finding whatever essential nutrients they need to get from it. There was a lot of flimsy, lighthearted pop music when we were growing up. You tend to remember the more substantive stuff that really stuck to your bones and forget the flimsier stuff, but there was flimsy stuff back in the day too. And I think there's lots of stuff coming out now, you know. I think Vic Mensa, Vince Staples, Chance, J. Cole, even though he's real divisive for people, Rhapsody, all these artists, Kendrick obviously, they're creating work that's going to have a lasting impact and it's going to be a touchstone that stays in people's lives. And I think there's a creative community built around that. There's inspiration to go out and be a positive force in the world, just like we got from Public Enemy. You know, I think that cycle continues. It's happening with a sound and a style that we're not going to connect to intuitively, but we're not supposed to. We did our thing. when it was our time to do it. I think the kids are doing that now. We're not supposed to do all of it. I think we can have a respect for it. Up to a point. There's some whack shit.
And then suddenly, like, your mom is arguing with, like, you know, your middle school...
Nazi?
Yeah, a Nazi. I was going to say your middle school bus driver, because I don't know who's in your friends list.